Hey, this is Bailey,
And I'm Timothy.
and welcome to Wet Sleep Podcast.
Let's get right into it.
Woo.
It's been a minute.
Hello. Oh, wait, hello. Try not to be loud.
You were actually too loud on my end right there. Welcome back to the Wet Sleep Podcast.
Welcome back.
Definitely glad to be back into it. We're going to come at you with a heavy hitter right out the front gate.
Heck yeah. I hope you guys are excited for it.
Yeah, some interesting things have happened. I got braces on now, finally. So there's that. So if you hear any weird enunciation, please excuse that. Still trying to get used to them. We've only had them on for just over a week now. So.
Yeah. And then hopefully never again.
Hopefully never again, yeah. So yeah, bear with me on that one.
Also, sorry if we're talking really gently. This isn't going to be like an ASMR, but like...
This is definitely going to be an ASMR episode. Nah.
We're trying to figure out studio stuff, so this is our attempt to not create too much echo so that we can edit faster for you guys.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Work in progress.
Yeah.
So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the one,
Tell him.
the only,
Give it to him.
Ted motherfucking Bundy. If you're here, I'm sure you've definitely heard of Ted Bundy before in one way or another, whether it was the Zac Efron movie or...
The Zac Efron movie?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how similar he actually looks to Ted Bundy.
He does, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people were like really upset about the casting because they're like, you're glorifying Ted Bundy by having
But that was
this
literally
like
his
A-lister.
whole thing
like,
during his trial.
Yeah, like his whole thing was that he was a more attractive serial killer, which is how he got his victims. And
Yeah.
also, like, the whole point of casting somebody is to cast them to look similar, especially if
Yeah, I mean,
it's...
we're not talking about Zac Efron playing like Richard Ramirez.
Right, like, which would be wrong.
So.
Incorrect, not like wrong morally, but like,
Yeah.
it looks nothing like him, so.
For those of you who don't know about Bundy, you better strap in. This is a wild ride, and I got a lot for you.
I'm here for it. Let's go.
So.
Let's do it.
First things first, we're going to go over, Ted's kind of not so sure early life.
Okay.
People feel like they know, but one way or another, things just kind of got lost a little bit.
I think I know a little bit, but not in depth.
Yeah. So Ted was born at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont.
Right.
His mother's name was Eleanor Louise Cowell. The identity of his father remains a mystery, but on Ted's birth certificate, it lists a Lloyd Marshall, who was born in 1916, as his father.
Old.
But here's the weird thing is Bundy's mother would later tell about being seduced by a war veteran named Jack Worthington.
Okay.
So no one really knows who Bundy's dad actually is.
Right. Is his mother still alive?
She died in 2013.
Okay, so I mean, like, more recently than I thought if she did die. So
Relatively recent. Bundy's family did not believe this story, though. And they expressed a suspicion about Louise's, violent, abusive father, Samuel Cowell.
Right.
And to avoid social stigma, Bundy's maternal grandparents, Samuel and Eleanor Cowell, claimed him as their son.
I mean, her story wasn't exactly, like, straight,
Yeah.
So, and I feel like I do remember learning about the whole father, her father abusing her and kind of believing that aspect, considering everything else. So,
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing, but I do feel like I believe that the most.
I mean, more than likely.
Very sad.
Yeah. But with that, he actually did take their last name.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually became Theodore Robert Cowell.
Right.
And he grew up believing that his mother was actually his older sister.
Oh, okay.
So that's a little bit of a weird
That is
dynamic
weird.
right there. Bundy biographers Stephen McCod and Hugh Ainsworth wrote that he learned Louise was actually his mother while he was in high school.
Really?
So, like,
Wonder how
he
that
went
happened.
a long time thinking that his mother was his sister.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that?
I don't want to.
That would be wild.
My thing is, what do you do in that situation when you learn that
I don't think there's anything you can do. Just be like, welp, I'm gonna go on 2 week,
thanks, sister, mom,
sister. I think I would still consider that person to be my sister because like
You kinda
sure
grew up thinking
biologically, yeah, like biologically, she's his mom, but throughout his life, she was his sister. So I think if I were in that position, I don't know, actually,
I guess it's one of those things where you really don't know until
unless
it happens to you.
right?
So, true crime writer Anne Rule, who actually knew Bundy personally, states that it was around 1969, shortly following a traumatic breakup with his college girlfriend. So, that's another weird thing. He was in high
While he was
school
in high
dating a
school?
college girl.
Oh, okay. How old was he?
Well, he was still in high school.
Just sometime
so
in high school?
Probably around
14 to
probably
18?
I would say probably closer to senior year.
Okay, that's weird.
So that's a little bit of a weird thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, around 1969 is when he found out that his sister is actually his mother. For the first few years of his life, Bundy and his mother actually lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And
Okay.
then in 1950, Bundy and his mother, whom, he still believed was his sister,
Right.
moved to live with relatives in Tacoma, Washington. It was here that Louise Cowell had her son's surname changed from Cowell to Nelson.
Okay. Just because, or like,
Just-
was there a
just
reason?
'cause.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of name changes here. That's weird.
Yeah, that's the thing about this is you're going to hear a lot of different last names with Bundy.
Right.
But eventually,
does
as he
become-
gets older, he pretty much claims the actual last name
Right.
as his own. So he kind of forgoes all of these names. So bear with us on that one. Try to keep up. In 1951, 1 year after their move, Louise Cowell met Johnny Culpepper Bundy at an adult singles night held at Tacoma's First Methodist Church.
All right.
In May of that year, the couple were married, and soon after, Johnny Bundy adopted Ted, legally changing his name to Bundy.
Gotcha.
So now he is.
There he is.
He is Ted Bundy.
That's the one. There we are.
Johnny and Louise Bundy had more children, whom the young Bundy spent much of his time babysitting. Johnny Bundy tried to include his stepson in camping trips and other father-son activities, but
Like a good dad.
yeah, like he was trying. He was really trying, but Ted kind of remained emotionally detached from him.
Right.
I think kind of
I mean, it's like kid.
having like that
moving
random,
around, different names.
yeah, different
now
names.
There's this guy in my life
There's
who.
this new guy's like, I'm
yeah.
adopting you.
Right.
Bundy was actually a very good student, as we know.
Right.
He actually went to Woodrow Wilson High School in Tacoma, Washington, and was active in the local Methodist church.
Okay.
He actually served as vice president of the Methodist Youth Fellowship. He was involved with a local troop of the Boy Scouts of America as well.
It's like doing community things.
Yeah, doing.
Yeah.
He was.
I mean, honestly, I think that's what's so scary about it is like he was doing kind of all the quote unquote like
and that's the thing,
stereotypically.
I think why his trial was so unique.
Right.
Is that he didn't have. I
He
don't
didn't
want to
have
say
a horrifying
typical murderer
upbringing.
characteristics. You
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Like he legit just seemed like an average, kind of well-rounded guy. So socially, Bundy remained shy and introverted throughout his high school and his early college years. So he did a lot, but I guess he really didn't go out of his way to be social.
Right. Same. I
he,
get that.
He would say later that he actually, quote, hit a wall in high school and that he was unable to understand social behavior, stunting his social development.
Okay. That's weird. I wonder.
So what he means by that, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
I don't know if that's
Maybe you
just like
couldn't get with the times, or
puberty
like,
hormones
yeah.
just making you think that you're no
You're-
longer a social butterfly or
Right.
whatever. But He did maintain a facade of social activity, but he had no natural sense of how to get along with other people. And he later said, I didn't know what made things tick. I didn't know what made people want to be friends. I didn't know what made people attractive to one another. I didn't know what underlay social interactions. So he just, for whatever reason, was just unable to comprehend what made people want to be social and how to be social.
Right.
So it's kind of weird, especially how he kind of
charm and
kind of learned. So
yeah,
that sociopath thing.
He's just such a weird case. I don't. Yeah, it's almost scarier that he learned to be. He used his power to be able to learn how to be a charismatic person for bad, and not to actually like have friends or
who needs friends when you can murder them.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Not saying go out and murder your friends, but murder them.
Use your powers for good. Don't know.
Years later, while on Florida's death row, Bundy would describe a part of himself from a young age was fascinated by images of sex and violence.
Okay, sure. Okay.
So a very common characteristic is murderers kind of equating sex with violence.
Right.
And that kind of goes back to the abusive father from his mother.
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of where that kind of correlation came from for him. Not exactly sure.
He could have also just been messed up.
Yeah, that too. In early prison interviews, Bundy called this part of himself, quote, the entity.
What does that mean? Like the entity made me do it? He just
called that part of him where he kind of just equated sex and violence together as the entity.
Weird.
So maybe he had kind of like some sort of personality disorder and...
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
I'm not a psychologist. I don't know.
I've never really heard anyone say that before, talking about, what he called the entity.
Yeah, no, I haven't either.
So
very
I found that very weird and pretty cool little tidbit. And while still in his teens, Bundy would look through libraries of detective magazines and books on crime, and he would specifically focus on sources that described sexual violence and featured pictures of dead bodies and violent sexuality.
I get being curious about things like that. We have a crime podcast, you know what I mean? Like, we do come across pictures of bodies from time to time, and it's like, we are aware that they're there. I don't actively search it out,
and I'm definitely not attracted to it.
If you're... Listen, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Just don't act it out. You know what I mean? It's like...
Needless to say.
Yeah,
Before he was even out of high school, Bundy was a compulsive thief, a shoplifter, and on his way to becoming an amateur criminal, which I've also didn't really know about.
I didn't know about the thievery. He was a petty thief.
You know how he loved, skiing and whatnot. He actually stole a pair of skis and equipment and actually learned how to forge ski lift tickets.
Okay.
Yeah. Just casually, just really loved to ski that much. He's like, I'm just going to figure this out.
I mean, if you can.
He was actually arrested twice as a juvenile, although these records were later expunged, as happens, especially with like younger people.
Yeah, when you're a kid.
So,
get away with it while you can, guys.
Not
murder. Not murder.
So that was kind of his like really early life. Now we're going to get on to his college years. So in 1965, Bundy graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School, and he was awarded a scholarship by the University of Puget Sound, and he began that fall taking courses in psychology and Oriental studies.
Huh.
After 2 semesters at UPS, he decided to transfer to Seattle's University of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
While a university student, Bundy worked as a grocery bagger and shelf stocker at a Seattle Safeway store on Queen Anne Hill, as well as other odd jobs. As part of his course of studies in psychology, he would later work as a night shift volunteer at Seattle's suicide hotline.
That's so scary. That is so crazy.
Isn't that weird?
Like, Ted Bundy talked me out of committing suicide. And then you learn later what he did. I just, like, I know he's a famous serial killer because, I mean, this, that, and the other reason, but I think the most interesting part about it is, like, everything that he did that also counteracted everything else that he did. Suicide Hotline was a murderer.
Was a murderer, yeah.
Like, what?
You know,
His brain
was
is
part of a Methodist church. Was really
murderer.
into sexual violence.
Right, but yeah, it's just, his brain's crazy.
It was there that he actually met and worked alongside former Seattle policewoman and fledgling crime writer Anne Rule.
And he worked with the crime writer.
Right.
Like, what?
Worked with a crime writer.
Right.
And
what did they do?
She later wrote a biography on Bundy and his crimes, and it's called The Stranger Beside Me. Great title, by the way.
Was that? Yeah, no, great title. But was that the woman? We'll talk about it later.
Shortly after this, he began a relationship with fellow university student Stephanie Brooks, who we've heard mentioned before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have.
He met her while enrolled at the University of Washington in 1967. Mm-hmm. Following her 1968 graduation and returned to her family home in California, she actually ended the relationship, fed up with what she described as Bundy's immaturity and lack of ambition, which kind of seems odd to me because he seems to be doing a lot of like these extracurricular things.
Yeah, I mean he's got other things going on
like
too.
He works as nighttime clerk at a gas station. He stocks shelves.
Got lots of jobs.
You know, he does a suicide hotline.
Maybe,
and all this while going to school.
I think it was just an excuse. She found
probably
some random excuse to use and was like, "You just don't have the ambition."
I guess.
You know,
maybe. Rule states that around this time, Bundy decided to pay a visit to his birthplace of Burlington, Vermont. There, according to Rule, he visited the local records clerk and finally uncovered the truth of his parentage.
That's so crazy. So he must have suspected it at that point, because like you don't just, or maybe it was just a good old like I want to learn about my family, you know, like I wonder why he went.
I guess this was before Ancestry.com.
Yeah. Sorry.
Don't spit into a tube and.
Yeah,
you
couldn't do it back then. Can now, but I don't know. I wonder what led him to it.
After this discovery, Bundy became a more focused and dominant person. I guess this is where he kind of decided that he was gonna take his life, like take over his life or whatever.
That's so crazy.
Take control of his life. That's the expression.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant flipped into like.
No, like this is probably where he was like, all
murder
right,
man.
You know, found out who my parents are. You know, been kind of lied to my whole life.
Right.
You know what? I'm gonna take charge. In 1968, he managed the Seattle office of Nelson Rockefeller's presidential campaign.
Okay.
And actually attended the 1968 Republican convention in Miami, Florida, as a Rockefeller supporter.
What a dumb excuse. You have no ambition. Look at him. Look at him go. I wish he just kept on a good track.
You know, we're getting into these things. It kind of makes you wonder, like, what kind of a path he would have been set on if, like, she never broke up with him and he never found out about his parentage.
I feel like, I mean, obviously, like, we're not blaming her for breaking up with him.
It's not.
Yeah, but
you know,
certain people have certain triggers, such as maybe getting broken up with or learning that your mom is actually, or your sister's actually your mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
you know, I'm not saying it's her fault or anything.
No, yeah, 100%. But it's like, he's the type of person who would react very negatively towards those kind of things, I feel. So if he had a better mindset about things, maybe gone to therapy instead of, well, I mean, I guess back in the day, like, therapy for men, even today, like, guys don't really go to therapy because they are perceived as weak and, you know, things like that. And, like, guys, therapy is so freaking important. Therapy
it's just mad expensive.
It is mad expensive. I can't afford therapy either.
I'm not paying $200 an hour to talk to somebody.
Right. But yeah, it does make you wonder, like, if he had access to therapy and stuff like that, like, if he would have reacted differently to it. I don't know if he would have
went to therapy.
Or if he, if he just would have bypassed that and just became a murderer anyway, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
I just kind of wish there was, like, a portal we could look through to, like,
different
dimensions and see, like, the different outcomes of, like, different situations.
Right. Like, if he just would have become a murderer anyway, even with access to everything that he needed.
Yeah.
So, I'm one of those people that's like, like, when I die, I hope that there's, like, a theater I get to go into and every question I ever have about anything gets answered. Like, what would have happened to Ted? What happened to what happened to John Benet Ramsey, you know, like
Oh, true.
just like any question. Most of it would be crime related, don't get me wrong, because that's just who I am as a person, but
Well, I mean, those are...
that would be cool.
Yeah, I
you
would
know?
love that.
I don't mean cool, I just mean like morbidly curious about.
I think it's
I need
cool.
closure. I need
I just
closure
think
in
it's
my
cool.
life.
Yeah, there's some things that you just want to learn, like who the Zodiac killer is. That'd probably be my first one. Who is the Zodiac?
Yeah. Just like a giant internet for my brain when I die.
Exactly. After this, he also re-enrolled at the University of Washington, this time with a major in psychology.
Okay. Scary, but yes.
Yeah. So Bundy became an honor student and was well liked by his professors. And in 1969, he started dating Elizabeth Clofer, who was a divorce secretary with a daughter who fell deeply in love with him.
Liz. Yeah.
Mhm.
Poor Liz.
They would continue dating for more than 6 years until he went to prison for kidnapping in 1976.
Dang.
So, Bundy graduated in 1972 from the University of Washington with his degree in psychology, and soon afterward, he again went to work for the state Republican Party, which included a close relationship with Governor Daniel J. Evans. During the campaign, Bundy actually followed Evans's Democratic opponent around the state and would tape record his speeches and report them back to Evans personally.
Really?
So, in minor...
He's a little bit of an espionage.
Yeah, he's pretty much thinking he's James Bond up in here. So, a minor scandal later followed when the Democrats found out about Bundy, who had been posing as a college student.
Really?
So...
Oh, yeah, because he did graduate.
Mhm.
That's right.
He
He's
did
not a
graduate
college
this
student,
time,
student
so.
anymore.
In the fall of 1973, Bundy enrolled in law school at the University of Utah, but he did poorly.
Oh, really?
He began skipping classes and finally dropped out in the spring of 1974.
Yeah.
While on a business trip to California in the summer of 1973, Bundy came back into his ex-girlfriend, Stephanie Brooks. Now, I'm going to specify that Stephanie Brooks is a pseudonym.
Okay.
So it's not actually
Yeah.
her. But yeah, he got back with her with a new life and a new look,
Right.
as well as kind of like a brand new attitude.
Kind of like fish.
He kind of like
Catfished her a little
reinvented
bit.
himself for her.
Right.
Because, she said, you don't have any ambition.
Yeah.
You're kind of
Honestly, that's like
immature.
Yeah, the dream for everybody. That one person that one
Just to get
person-
back at
Yeah,
him.
just to get back at him. Just go get better. Go do good. It's exactly what he did.
Oh, yeah. It's exactly what he
back.
did. And then some.
Like, look what I did with myself. Thank
yeah,
you.
he kind of reinvented himself, and he kind of posed himself as a serious, dedicated professional who had been accepted to law school, even though he dropped out.
Well, he didn't specify dropping
He didn't
out.
specify
He didn't
that.
specify completing. He said I was.
He did say I have been accepted. Yeah. So, I mean, he's not wrong.
That's
technically.
a me. That is a me move right there. I was accepted.
That's probably the most lawyer thing he's done. So Bundy continued to date Clofer as well, and neither woman was aware that the other existed.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's disgusting. Bundy courted Brooks throughout the rest of the year, and she accepted his marriage proposal. 2 weeks later, however, shortly after New Year's of 1974, he unceremoniously dumped her, refusing to return her phone calls.
Boom. There it is.
Right?
You said I don't have any ambition. I got accepted into law school.
He did it
I'm
just to
coming
get back to her.
I'm coming back. You
He
can't
flipped the
have
script.
me. You can't have me.
Yeah, right?
Which, I mean, bullet dodged.
I mean, yeah, because so a few weeks after the breakup is when Bundy began a murderous rampage in the state of Washington.
That was all he needed.
That's all he needed. No one knows exactly where or when Bundy began killing exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Many Bundy experts, including Ann Rule and former King County Detective Robert D. Keppel, believe Bundy may have started killing as far back as his early teens.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's when they believe it kind of started, because that's also around the time when he became, or he hit the wall, as he said.
Yeah. The entity became the entity.
So...
Huh. Yeah, I figured everybody just kind of accepted that it was like later on after his whole college escapade, and I
guess
think
that also
I was in the mindset of like while he was with Liz is when all that started.
Yeah, he's probably using her as kind of a cover, kind of like an alibi sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie Burr, an 8-year-old girl from Tacoma, actually vanished from her home in 1961 when Bundy was 14 years old. Though Bundy always denied killing her.
Right.
The day before his execution, Bundy told his lawyer that he made his first attempt to kidnap a woman in 1969. It implied that he committed his first actual murder sometime in 1972.
Which was a couple of years after high school, right?
When
did he graduate?
1972 is when he graduated college.
So 68 around was when he graduated high school.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I forget dates all the time.
So, and also at one point in his death row confessions with Keppel, Bundy said that he committed his first murder in 1972.
Okay, so 1972 is when he said, did he give names for the ones that he, like on his death row confessions, did he give any names?
Well, he did give names of people he did murder.
Right.
But the earliest known one that he officially named was back in 1974.
Okay.
Is the earliest that he officially identified.
Right.
So that was around when he
That's
was 27
Just
is when he said he started.
Like, it sounds morbid, but if you're gonna die anyway, just give us the names, just tell us what happened.
That's one thing I never understood. Like, you're already
it's
on
a
death
power
row.
move. It's a power move.
You
They
think
don't
so?
want to give it to you because psychologically they're like, I'm gonna have something over you and you're never gonna find it out, and that power will literally always be with me. After death, I'm still gonna have the upper hand.
Yeah. Also,
It's a dick move.
I'm gonna go ahead and apologize if you hear thunder in the background.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, just out of the blue, it just decided to start storming.
There was a massive thunderstorm outside right now.
So.
And I like how we started out this episode with
It was all sunny.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, it was all sunny. We were like, we're gonna try to be quiet to try to reduce echo, and then boom, thunder. It's like, come on.
Do you think this is the wrath of Bundy?
This is the wrath of Bundy. This is how What Sleep Pod.
See?
This is how What Sleep podcast goes. We try to do something, and something always goes wrong.
It's fine.
It is the spirit of the podcast, but we're glad you guys are here with us.
Maybe it'll just add some like ambiance to what we're talking about.
That's what it is. It's ambience.
So, in 1973, one of Bundy's Republican Party friends saw a pair of handcuffs in the back of Bundy's infamous Volkswagen Beetle. He was for many years a suspect in the December 1973 murder of Kathy Devine in Washington State. But DNA analysis led to another man's arrest and conviction for that crime in 2002.
Okay. There you go.
So, as I said before, Bundy's earliest known identified murders were committed in 1974.
Right.
Around when he was 27.
Yeah.
So, the first one was shortly after midnight on January 4th in 1974. Bundy said that he entered the basement bedroom of 18-year-old. We're going to use pseudonyms for some of these, so 18-year-old Joni Lenz, who was a dancer and student at the University of Washington.
Yeah.
Bundy bludgeoned her with a metal rod from her bed frame while she was asleep, and sexually assaulted her with a speculum.
Yeah.
So
Where did he get a speculum?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway.
He liked to carry things with him, so.
What a weird thing to carry with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Lenz was found the next morning by her roommates in a coma and lying in a pool of her own blood.
It's terrifying.
She's actually survived the attack.
Really?
But suffered permanent brain damage from the assault. So that's probably why we're using pseudonyms, is because we don't.
Survivors.
Yeah. They deserve their peace. They've been through a lot.
She went through a lot.
Yeah.
That's horrific.
Bundy's next victim was Linda Ann Healy, another University of Washington student, and also his cousin's roommate.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So
what? Okay.
Yeah.
That's so close to yourself. What a bold move.
I know, honestly, and this is the second one too.
That's crazy.
Well, second
Attempt that we know of.
stated one.
Yeah.
In the early morning hours of February 1st, 1974, Bundy broke into Healy's room, knocked her unconscious, dressed her in jeans and a shirt, and then wrapped her in a bedsheet and just carried her away.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So, my thing is he took the time to dress her up normally.
Did he kill her?
Mm-mm. These are
He
just
just
kind of like
took her?
assaults and
Where did he take her?
kidnapping. We never really knew.
Okay.
But, it was around this time that co-eds began disappearing at like an increasingly high rate.
So I wonder if he was like practicing to see if he could do it.
He probably
and
was,
maybe he like kept it close so he can like kind of explain it away or something. I have no idea what's going on through his head, but
yeah.
Weird.
So
all right.
But yeah, so these kind of kidnappings and disappearances, they kind of picked up at a rate of about one a month.
Really?
On March 12th in 1974 in Olympia, Bundy kidnapped and murdered Donna Gail Manson, who was a 19-year-old student at the Evergreen State College.
Yeah.
The next month, on April 17th of 1974, Suzanne Rancourt disappeared from the campus of Central Washington State College.
That was loud.
That was loud. In Ellensburg. Later, two different Central Washington State College co-eds would recount meeting a man with his arm in a cast.
I
One
hate
that night.
so much. Man, he really went into sorry, didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
you're
like
good.
the whole like he went to school for psychology and was able to learn how to, kind of exist around other people and like become more social, and like he learned how to play people basically so he could murder them, which is very
If you
scary.
think about it, a degree in psychology is the perfect thing to get if you're a murderer.
Right. And like honestly, most people probably don't even need that to be a murderer, but like he was so, just from the way that he described it, is like he learned himself how to actually like acclimate to people, and then got even more knowledge in school.
Oh yeah.
To trap people, which is so scary.
Very. Two different co-eds at the school would recount meeting a man with his arm in a cast. One that night, one 3 nights earlier, who asked for their help to carry a load of books to his Volkswagen Beetle. So if you know anything about Ted Bundy, is that the Volkswagen Beetle plays a huge part in this case.
Huge part. It's almost as iconic as Ted.
Pretty
himself.
much, yeah. I mean, you really can't talk about Ted Bundy without talking about his Volkswagen Beetle. So the next victim was Kathy Parks, who was last seen on the campus of Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon on May 6th of 1974.
Okay, so he's like switched states now.
Yeah, he kind of likes to
bounce
between
around.
like the few states within the area of Washington.
Okay.
Brenda Ball was never seen again after leaving the Flame Tavern in Burien on June 1st, 1974. So right there was another victim.
Yeah.
Bundy then murdered Georgianne Hawkins, a student at the University of Washington and a member of Kappa Alpha Theta, an on-campus sorority.
Right.
In the early morning hours on June 11, 1974, she walked through an alley from her boyfriend's dormitory residence to her sorority house.
Mm-hmm.
It was there that she was never seen again.
That's so sad.
Yeah. Witnesses later reported seeing a man with a leg cast struggling to carry a briefcase in the area that night. One co-ed reported that the man had asked for her help in carrying the briefcase to his car, which was a Volkswagen Beetle.
Theater Bundy. Theater.
That's also another thing. He likes to fake injuries to
Which
try and
is
get people to help.
all to play with their heads.
Yeah.
Just feigning weakness to overpower people is so messed up.
Just a little bit. So, Bundy's Washington killing spree culminated on the 14th of July in 1974 with the daytime abduction of Janice Ott and Denise Noslin from Lake Sammamish State Park in Issaquah. That day, 8 different people told the police about the handsome young man with his left arm in a sling who called himself Ted. 5 of them were women whom Ted asked for help unloading a sailboat from his Beetle. One of them went with Ted as far as his car, where there was no sailboat, before declining to accompanying him any further.
Yeah, not victim blaming, but that's just such a weird story about like to lure her.
Mm-hmm.
I have a small Volkswagen Beetle that I need to unload a sailboat from. Does he mean like a full size like
No,
boat sailboat,
like a
or do you mean
little
like
boat that you kind of just take out on like a little lake, not like, you know, a sailboat that you
well,
take
I
to the
mean,
ocean.
sure, but like even one that goes on like a lake, I don't think like a Beetle could. I know nothing about cars, but I feel like that's not something your Beetle would be able to like transport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's weird.
Either,
That would throw
either
up
way, you know.
red flags to me. I'd be like, how?
Yeah, the second that, you know, you kind of see his car, one, there's no boat there.
Right.
Two, it's a little Beetle.
Yeah, like
immediately I'm just being like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah, that's something you can see from very far away.
Oh,
is
yeah.
that there is, in fact, no boat. That's
Yeah.
bold and wild, and it's scary.
3 more witnesses testified to seeing him approach Ott with the story about the sailboat and to seeing her walk away from the beach in his company. It was from then on she was never seen alive again.
And there were multiple people reporting all this.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Noslin disappeared without a trace 4 hours later.
I think the other thing too is like, how did he not get caught earlier? Because of all these
well,
witnesses.
my favorite thing about this case is how he actually got caught.
There's just so many witnesses, and it's all generally in the same area. Like, how do you not put two and two together? It's not like, you know, other cases where it's like people are committing murders across state lines, across multiple state lines, all over the U.S., all over Mexico, all over Canada. People, they could still put that together. You know what I mean? These murders, and like, they all generally happen in the same area. You've got multiple witnesses reporting these things. How did that not get put together? You know, it blows my mind. If they looked a little bit harder,
when you have like 8 different people all saying, hey, this guy in a Volkswagen Beetle,
a yellow Volkswagen Beetle,
which has been mentioned multiple
times
by different areas
in multiple, and it's not, I don't know how common of a car it was back then.
It was very common.
Okay, well,
it was one of the most popular cars.
Still,
but even then,
you could look into them a little harder.
Yeah,
I don't know. It blows my mind.
But after this, King County detectives now had a description both of the suspect and of his car.
Right. Again.
So, some witnesses told investigators that the Ted they encountered spoke with a clipped British-like accent.
They even had a name.
Yeah, they had his literal name.
I don't understand. He didn't even change it.
He didn't. He just went, yeah, it's Ted, not Theodore.
I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. But you know how it is.
I do. And it makes me mad.
So, soon flyers were all up over the Seattle area. After seeing the police sketch and description of the Lakes Sammamish suspect in both of the local newspapers and on television news reports, Bundy's girlfriend, one of his psychology professors at the University of Washington,
Wow.
and former coworker Ann Rule all reported him as a possible suspect.
Yeah, there you go.
The police, receiving up to 200 tips per day, did not pay any special attention to a tip about a clean-cut law student.
Of course they did. Look into everything. I know there's a lot of tips, but I feel like a lot of them can be very quickly thrown out, you know, if you look into it.
But it really makes you think, like,
it's so dumb.
If just one of them would have just
them.
looked at him and been like, maybe it's him.
Let's consider it at least. Bare minimum.
How much sooner would this have ended?
Keep him on my radar. That's it. That's all it would have taken.
Like, if I were to ever become a detective and after learning about all this, I would literally look into everybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss anybody because, you know, if you dismiss the wrong person, that literally means lives.
Right. It could literally be anybody.
Yeah.
So you got to look into everybody.
So the fragmented remains of Ott and Noslin were discovered on September 7th of 1974.
Wow.
Off Interstate 90 near Issaquah, 1 mile from the park.
Really?
Found along with the women's remains was an extra femur bone and vertebrae, which Bundy would identify as that of Georgianne Hawkins shortly before his execution.
Really? A third victim?
I remember from earlier before.
Oh, okay.
I believe that was his second victim that he actually reported.
But all in the same, like, area.
Yeah, literally 3 different corpses in the same little grave.
That's crazy.
Well, not 3 different corpses, 1 extra femur bone for whatever reason.
Did they ever find the rest of her? Do you know?
I don't think so. I think it was just the femur bone.
That's
Oddly
really
enough.
sad.
It is.
That's horrible.
Between March 1st and March 3rd of 1975, the skulls and jawbones of Healy, Rancourt, Parks, and Ball were found on Taylor Mountain just east of Issaquah. Years later, Bundy claimed that he had also dumped Donna Manson's body there, but no trace of her was ever found.
That's weird. I wonder if he lied.
Probably.
I feel like maybe he wouldn't, though.
I mean, he pretty much said, yeah, this is this person's femur bone.
Right. Yeah, he was giving information. I mean, but again, it could be one of those things like, that information will die with me.
Maybe.
You know?
So, that was kind of all the ones in Washington that he did.
Right.
So now we're going to move on to his Utah and Colorado ones. Now, around the time of his Utah and Colorado murders is when Bundy starts showing up on cameras and pleads not guilty during press conferences, announcing his indictment on his first-degree murder charges.
Mm-hmm.
So that autumn of 1974
Finally.
is when, finally,
Right.
is when Bundy began attending the University of Utah Law School in Salt Lake City, where he resumed killing in October. Nancy Wilcox disappeared from Holiday, Utah on October 2nd of 1974. Wilcox was last seen riding in a Volkswagen Beetle.
After getting not really, I mean,
But
caught.
imagine how
and
cocky
then-
you are.
Yeah, like, and not even super far away from, you know, where you were originally
literally just the
killing
next state
people.
over.
I just, bold
Yeah.
man. I will give it to him. Very bold man.
Literally, and being indicted on first-degree murder charges, and while you're pleading not guilty, you're going out and murdering
Going-
people.
Yeah, continuing to do so.
Yeah. So, on October 18th of 1974, Bundy murdered Melissa Smith, the 17-year-old daughter of Midvale Police Chief Louis Smith. Bundy raped, sodomized, and strangled her. Her body was found 9 days later. Next was Laura Aim, also 17, who disappeared when she left a Halloween party in Lehi, Utah, on October 31st of 1974. Her naked, beaten, and strangled corpse
Wow.
was found nearly a month later by hikers on Thanksgiving Day
I'm stressed.
on the banks of a river in American Fork Canyon.
That's ridiculous.
Could you imagine
That
going
is so
for a hike on
sad.
Thanksgiving Day thinking it's just going to be a nice
She
family
went missing
thing?
on Halloween, you said? She was coming from a Halloween party.
She's coming from a Halloween party.
So like a month later.
Yeah, a month later is when her body was found
Wow.
on Thanksgiving Day
That is ridiculous.
in pretty much a ditch.
That's so sad.
Just a little bit.
That is really sad.
In Murray, Utah, on November 8th, 1974, Carol DeRanch narrowly escaped with her life. Claiming to be Officer Roseland of the Murray Police Department, Bundy approached her at the Fashion Place Mall, told her someone had tried to break into her car, and asked her to accompany him to the police station.
Wow.
She got into his car but refused his instruction to buckle her seatbelt. They drove for a short period before Bundy suddenly pulled to the shoulder and attempted to slap a pair of handcuffs on her. In the struggle, he fastened both loops on the same wrist. Bundy whipped out his crowbar, but DeRanch caught it in mid-air just before it would have cracked her skull.
Ow. I mean, yeah. I'd rather get my hand hit than my skull,
Yeah.
but ow.
She then got the door open and tumbled out onto the highway, thus escaping from her would-be killer.
Go her. Go her.
Right.
Another witness. I hope they took her seriously.
About an hour later,
Mhm.
mind you, a strange man showed up at Viewmont High School in Bountiful, Utah, where the drama club was putting on a play. He approached the drama teacher and then a student, asking both to come out to the parking lot to identify a car.
Oh my god.
Both declined.
You have to assume there's so many people there. It's insane how bold.
Yeah, just brazenly.
You just walk up into a school where there's a play going on with, I'm sure, many adults, many children, so many witnesses.
Yeah.
He doesn't care anymore.
But here's the thing, too, is the drama teacher saw him again shortly before the end of the play, this time breathing hard with his hair mussed and his shirt untucked.
No.
Another student saw the man lurking in the rear of the auditorium. Debbie Kent, a 17-year-old Viewmont High student, left the play at intermission to go and pick up her brother and was never seen again.
No.
Later, investigators...
I didn't know about the high school kill. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Later, investigators found a small key in the parking lot outside Viewmont High. It unlocked the handcuffs taken off Carol DeRange.
Wow.
So he literally
That's
handcuffed
so
her and
ominous.
threw the key out.
That's horrifying.
In 1975, while still attending law school at the University of Utah, Bundy shifted his crimes to Colorado. On January 12th, 1975, Karen Campbell disappeared from the Wildwood Inn at Snowmass, Colorado, where she had been vacationing with her fiancé and his children. She vanished somewhere in the span of 50 feet between the elevator doors and her room.
Wow.
Her body was found on February 17th of 1975.
Wow.
So about just over a month later.
Yeah. I wonder how many people he actually like legitimately killed
I think the
in total.
actual number, well, confirmed number is 32, right?
That's too many.
Probably more than that.
A lot, yeah.
To be honest, with how brazen he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vail ski instructor Julie Cunningham disappeared on March 15th of 1975, and Denise Oliverson in Grand Junction on April 6, 1975. While in prison, Bundy confessed to Colorado investigators that he used crutches to approach Cunningham after asking her to help him carry some ski boots to his car. One, you're on a crutch, so what are you doing with ski boots?
Yeah.
Like right there would have been a red flag for me.
Yeah.
But it was there at the car. Bundy clubbed her with his crowbar and immobilized her with handcuffs, later strangling her in a crime highly similar to the Hawkins murder.
Yeah. That's horrific.
Lynette Culver went missing in Pocatello, Idaho on May 6, 1975, from the grounds of her junior high school. After his return to Utah, Suzanne Curtis vanished on June 28, 1975. Bundy confessed to the Curtis murder minutes before his execution.
Really?
So,
Just minutes before?
Just minutes before.
Wow.
That's when he confessed.
There's more. I wonder if that was an attempt to stop it for the time being and then be like, I've got more,
Maybe.
you know?
But the bodies of Cunningham, Culver, Curtis, and Oliverson have never been recovered.
That's, okay.
Nearly 50 years later.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back in Washington State, investigators were attempting to prioritize their enormous list of suspects.
Yeah.
They used computers to cross-check different likely lists of suspects, classmates of Linda Healy, owners of Volkswagens,
Right.
etc., against each other, and then identify suspects who turned up on more than one list.
Mm-hmm.
Theodore Robert Bundy was one of 25 people who turned up on 4 separate lists, and his case file was second on the to-be-investigated pile when the call came from Utah of an arrest.
Okay.
I think for next time, we'll go over his arrest, his first trial, and as well as his really weird escape.
Multi-parter.
Multi-parter. Should have seen that one coming for this one.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
No, there's so much on Ted. And it's too
much.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's too intricate of a case to not talk about everything.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of wild things and interesting things to talk about and very sad things. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I do hope you guys enjoyed this first part of Ted Bundy. And hope you bared with us through this weird thunderstorm that just ended out of nowhere and now it's sunny again.
It's bright and sunny outside now, so.
And so we appreciate it. Glad to be back, and we appreciate it if you would share this episode with your friends, family, anyone kind of interested in true crime. We greatly appreciate all of that. And we will
Come back and see us in the next episode.
Oh, yeah, come back and see us in the next episode out later this week. Bye.
Bye.